Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to this week's Stock Market Outlook video brought to you by DeepView. That's the platform that's my daily driver for screening, charting, alerts, you name it. And if you haven't checked this out, highly recommend it. It's the most powerful tool, especially for slim, swing, and position traders that can really elevate your trading. So check it out if you haven't, using the link down below in the description. And as always, today we're going to discuss the market indexes, leading groups and themes, and then dive into some individual stocks as well. Check up on a few different setups, as well as discuss overall the health of the market leaders. With that said, let's go ahead and start off with the QQQ and SPY. Looking at the general market, you can draw these trend lines as I have on the QQQ. We did see a little bit of breakdown this past Friday, where we're breaking under the 21 EMA, breaking under this kind of short-term shelf that we've been building, as well as below this trend line. So a little bit of individual weakness here on the QQQ. But taking a step back, we're above a rising 50 SMA, 200 SMA. We've been in a trend for quite some time. So we'll have to see whether there's just going to be more of a pause like in here, or if we'll see more of a correction through price and time, as we saw back in the fall of last year. So definitely something to keep an eye on. This weakness, I think it was a positive, as we'll get into, that some semiconductors are holding up well, and that's really been the leading group. So not crazy distribution happening just yet, but we pretty much kind of treaded water since the middle of February back here. We're around that same level. So just, something to keep in mind over here. My strategy, growth, momentum, swing position trading works best when we're trending above a rising 21 EMA, especially after we've just come out of a fresh correction. So, the trend, is a little bit mixed right now, especially on the daily time frame. Looking at a weekly, it's a little bit more sustained. We're still just in this rising channel, but we could see, some continued chop or falter to the downside. That's something to be aware of, and we'll just have to see where the chips fall. So that is QQ. Bring up the SPY, very similar action. We're right at that 21 EMA, so again, kind of at a key level. You've got this pivot low, we've got the 21 EMA, but all the moving averages are aligned in a nice trend. And this spot down here, 503, could be something to watch to the downside, but we'll just have to see whether we do get any fall through. Bringing up the IWO, this gives you more of a sense of what many of the kind of mid caps and smaller cap names are doing. And this looks a little bit worse than the QQQ, where we've had this breakout, but now we're seeing big reversals to the downside, big down bar here to the 21 EMA. We're holding that low, so this low is definitely significant for me. Next week, I'd love to see a sharp recovery back to around 260, back into this kind of structure that formed above this base. But we are above this base pivot. So we'll see how things, develop from this point. But from an index point of view, a little bit of weakness, especially late last week. We've been kind of treading water for the past 2 weeks, and we'll just have to wait and see whether there's going to be more chop, continuation in the trend, or just, more of a pullback than we've seen so far. We haven't really had that much of a pullback this year. We've been in the sustained trend. So, for the moment, these pullbacks have been bought, and it will be a little bit of a character change if we do see, break of the 50, sharp pullback to the 50. We haven't seen that since this, November correction. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. No need, as always, to predict. We just have to kind of act in the moment, determine how aggressive, how exposed we want to be in the market. And for me, I want to be most aggressive early on in a cycle. As many stocks are breaking out of fresh bases, we're seeing nice follow through. Leadership groups are developing, and when we're longer in the trend, it makes sense to take the foot off the gas a little bit. You can definitely try new opportunities, but you just don't want to go all in on a few week base when we've already been trending for quite some time. So we'll have to see what happens, but that's pretty much it from an index point of view. Looking at the groups and themes, crypto, AI, that's really what's been driving us throughout this move. Software has definitely been in there as well. but those have been kind of the two biggest themes. And last week we saw some rotation out of that a little bit and into oil and gas, miners as well. And I've got this kind of theme ETFs deep list in deep view. This is my column set that I've got set up for it. Percent change today, percent change 5-day. That's kind of the two key columns for me. And every day I just kind of sort by that, see, what was strongest today. You can see blockchain acted well, silver miners acting well, gold up there. And, that gives me a sense very easily what groups were strongest that day. You can also look at the daily closing range for sure. Scrolling down, you can see the weakest groups where we've got cybersecurity names, which have been acting well as well. That's been leading, but very easily, just with this simple setup and sorting the column by this, you can see what groups are strongest that day. And then every weekend, very similarly, sorting by that 5-day change, you can see where the rotation, where the money was flowing for that week. And right now it's in the oil and gas ETFs and the miners as well. And then in deep view, this is awesome. I mean, if you want to dive deeper into any single ETF, just press H, and then you can basically just go ahead and tab through and see if there's any setups. A lot of these oil and gas names have had a nice momentum move up, continuation up, but it looks like a group trend that we're seeing new uptrends in this area. So again, not usually the best kind of growth conditions when these names are doing particularly well. We've also got kind of copper that's been strong as well. That's just a little bit about how I use these theme ETFs to really help identify what are the leading groups, what themes should I be diving into more, and where could the market leaders be lurking at this time. And to get rid of that, you just X that out, and we're back to that ETF list. So again, we're seeing some rotation into oil and gas. That's kind of the biggest takeaway for me last week. And scrolling down to on a 5-day basis, we're seeing the ARC names, SMH showing a little bit of distribution, cybersecurity, blockchain as well, even though it was a little bit strong as more of a bounce on Friday. Over the past 5 days, it's pulled back pretty hard. And let's actually take a look at those names. You can see, a lot of them pulled back very hard last week. Coin's kind of the institutional leader. It acted well on Friday, nice reversal, but we'll have to see whether this pullback and obviously it correlates a little bit with what Bitcoin and crypto are doing, but we'll see if this pullback leads to something more. It could certainly pull back to the 21 EMA, even a rising 50 this high, and still, set up for continuation up. So we'll just have to see what happens with these names, but it's a great way to, dive deeper into a theme and do some kind of top-down analysis to determine what are the strongest groups in the market. All right, with that said, I also set up kind of a new deep list setup here, which gives me a really great idea of what the mega caps are doing. A lot of money flows into these. These are traded by institutions. This is where they go to hide, all of that. So it's great to have just, this quick look, again, very similar to this about is money, are these doing well? How have they done on a 5-day basis? All of that helps inform about the health of the market. So I set up on my deep list dashboard, which if you don't know, it's completely customizable. This is a grid system where all these are individual apps on, basically a canvas. I'll actually go ahead and make a new dashboard to show you guys. This is a really cool feature that we've created. You can basically drag in any element you want, resize it, and create your ideal dashboard here in deep view. So I've got one for screening, my market monitor, that's kind of my market analysis setup. Execution, I've got kind of my positions, my focus list, I've got that set up all ready to go. And then position sizing, this is one I was messing around with. We just added an app that's the position size calculator, and we'll be adding a lot more apps, some focused on news per ticker, some focused on earnings, what are upcoming earnings. We'll have that there for you. Position management app, we've got that planned as well, where you can list your positions, see your P&L right there in deep view. So we'll be adding a lot more apps than just kind of these main stalwarts, but this position size calculator app is one we just added with this latest release, and it links to your deep list. So you can set up these parameters, and as you're scrolling through see what your risk would be, your dollars at risk, and quickly know how you should basically size your position. So I just wanted to mention that one of the really nice handy features here in DeepView, and it can really help you just in the moment. You don't want to be calculating shares on the fly. You want to be able to execute as quickly as possible, and that's our aim with DeepView, is making trading easier and your actions more effective. So with that said, let's go through these mega caps real quick. Start with Apple. Just in a downtrend, this looks like among the weaker here, below the moving averages. We have kind of pulled down and pushed up a little bit in the context of a downtrend. So we'll see if we can build off this and kind of form a higher low here, or if we continue to the downside. We are below the 21 and 50 SMA. Tesla has been the weakest. This may be the weakest stock in the S&P 500 this year. I think I saw that potentially, but just in a downtrend as well. Amazon, much stronger, trending nicely, but we're seeing that potential. You can draw kind of a pivot here, potential failed breakout. We're above that 21 EMA. We'll see if we can hold above that, as well as this overall structure that's been forming since this earnings gap. Nvidia, obviously, we all know the great run it's had since that 500 pivot, still above that 21 EMA, and we'll see how it develops from this flag, whether it needs more time. To build a proper base up here would take weeks, and this is just kind of week 1 and maybe 2 after this big reversal. So just kind of wait and see from me at this point. We'll see if it can push up higher, but to form a proper base up here, it'll need to consolidate through time. Meta at that 21 EMA as well, so you can see how these names that have a large weighting and percentage, they're kind of at key levels here. So Meta right at that 21 EMA, we'll see how that holds up. Google, looks a little bit choppy in here. Nice push off the 200-day moving average, but a little bit short-term extended and at that 50 SMA coming into that level. So we'll see how that does. You can also draw a pivot from this level. So a few kind of key levels, being in the same area here. We'll see how it acts next week. And Microsoft also potentially with a failed breakout, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens if this can hold up, firm up. You see a lot of breakouts that fail initially, hold up at that 21 EMA, and then rebound upwards. We'll see if that can happen with Microsoft. But that's kind of a quick run through of the indexes, the leading themes, as well as the mega caps. Gives you a nice overall picture of the market. And now let's go through a few individual names. But first, just to summarize what we've said, looking at the SPY and QQQ, a little bit of late weakness, some chop would be normal. We're below that 21 EMA and the lower trend line here for the first time in quite some time. We've come a long way in this market cycle. The time to really be aggressive was November, December. There were some great opportunities even on this latest push off the 21 EMA. But we just may need to chop here or potentially go into further consolidation mode. Again, we don't have to predict what's going to happen. I think the biggest thing is to keep track of your own portfolio, how your own trading is doing. Are you seeing a lot of setups right now this weekend? Going through my screens, I didn't see that much out there. There's a few opportunities, maybe like Shake Shack in that theme, which has been strong along with Kava and Sweet Green SG. But there's not that huge breadth of setups that we'd like to see at the beginning of the week, but that can change very quickly. So staying in tune with how many setups you're seeing, keeping your watch list fresh, that's a great way, maybe even more important than taking a look at the indexes to inform you about the overall health of the market. So with that said, let's go ahead and go over to my deep list. I've got my wide list here, right here. We'll run through a few different names. Let's go ahead and sort by absolute strength 1 month. CELH, I wanted to highlight this name. This has just been on fire since this earnings move. You could have bought through this pivot here, shortly off the open as well. Nice move from this base, but a little bit short-term extended. So even the names that are very strong right now in the growth area, they're a little bit extended. They're not forming, pullbacks at 21 EMA or, nice tight patterns up the right-hand side of bases. They're a little bit, they've been trending for a while. They're forming shorter term flags if they're forming stuff. So again, maybe not the time to be super aggressive, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. HIMS as well has been acting well. This looks a little bit more ready. You've got a pivot right at this high, 14.9, and it's holding that 10 EMA nicely. That's this line here. So potentially actionable next week, but that's more of a swing trade type move to look for, a multi-day swing versus, start a huge position here. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Pay, this has been really strong in the payment space, but again, short-term extended pulling back now. We'll see how this performs here. ACMR pulling back into that 21 EMA area, but kind of leaking down here. Hasn't really had, a great reaction. I'd love to see the structure kind of form up here versus kind of leaking lower, and let that 21 EMA kind of catch up to it versus pulling back into it. But this is a key area, and it's pulled back quite quite far. So this will be something to watch. This is more of a secondary name in the semis as well. That's another thing to keep in mind, but I love the volume coming on this earnings move. Coin, especially because, the crypto theme is so strong. This is, the institutional leader of that space. Nice reaction, nice, undercut and recovery of this low here. Nice push and close Friday, but we'll have to see how this performs. This is just kind of trending. There's not really a lower setup unless you caught it on Friday, through that low shortly after the open, as it was pulling back, and then recovered very sharply. So coin definitely strong. NVIDIA, we already talked about, forming a short-term flag. Again, potentially actionable for a short-term swing trade through these highs, if that's what you're looking for. But in terms of a move that can last weeks and months, it's already been kind of doing that. So it needs a little bit of time to consolidate and form, a multi-week base. Duolingo, one that I was watching last week, but it broke down Friday. We'll see how this resolves itself, but it's kind of moving up the right-hand side of this base. Still like the story, still like the growth. Let's bring up the stats table in deep view, which highlights the earnings and sales growth of the quarter. You can also go many quarters out, which is great because, we all know that stocks trade on future earnings, future growth expectations, and we get to see that in deep view, which is great for analyzing stocks. And it's got great growth potential, but in the short term, the technicals have to align with your theory, your case, and right now in the very short term, because of this candle, this bar, we're seeing weakness and didn't quite push out of that flag. AMD in the semi space as well, very similar to NVIDIA, but this is potentially, pulling into a point of confluence. So this will be on my radar. Again, nice action Friday, pushing up inside day right at that 21 EMA. I like how it found support right at that pivot, and potentially actionable through these highs. You can draw a downward trend line right there, and I'll actually go ahead and add an alert. There we go. To that name. App, this one is holding up pretty well. Very short term, 2-day flag here, watching that one. Shake Shack, as I mentioned, this theme is kind of coming together. You've got Kava, you've got Sweet Green moving nicely after earnings, and Shake Shack, nice upside reversal Friday. You've got a pivot, basically right through that high, right through 104. And I'll actually also set an alert there. I haven't yet. There we go. Add that alert. Let's cover SMCI as well. A little bit short-term weakness. I'd love to see it, go inside day Friday and then potentially set up this pivot. But we'll see if it can find support in this area as it had right here. But now we're back below that 10 EMA, which has kind of been the guideline so far during this move, but could definitely pull back to the 21 EMA and nothing could be wrong with it. But this is one that's pretty volatile at this moment. So just kind of watching this one. This is a leader. NVIDIA, I think, is a little bit more important. Coin, more important for the crypto names. But this has been, definitely a leader of this market. Let's see, was there anything I want to highlight as well? I'll kind of have my full list prepped later today. But some more in the crypto space. We've seen CLSK push up nicely. This is forming, a base since around February 14th. Tried to push out 2 times, been rejected. But if crypto continues to perform well, this could certainly continue to push up. Let's go ahead and bring up SG, which I don't think is on that list, but I'll go ahead and add it. Nice move since this earnings gap. Nice push up higher. But again, not really actionable at these areas. You could have bought it potentially as it tightened in here and pushed up higher on this day, but now it's just kind of short-term extended at this point. So definitely one to keep an eye on. See how it acts when it next pulls back into that 21 EMA or forms another base. So that's pretty much it for this video. Went through market indexes, key themes, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Let me know your thoughts down below on the market. I'd love to hear what you guys are watching as well. Let me know 1 or 2 tickers that you have your eyes on. Any themes that I missed, definitely let me know. I know a lot of people are watching a few of the copper names. SCCO, super strong breakout, but again, the proper buy point is this wedge pop here, or when it actually broke out and now it's short-term extended. So we'll see how these back and fill, if they form flags, all that. That's something to watch this week. But other than that, I think we pretty much covered pretty much all I wanted to say. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you're still watching this point, thank you so much. Definitely leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.